Hi, I'm Finn. I am visually impaired. I have a sister with the same condition as me and a brother who is sighted.
Hi, I'm Kate. I'm visually impaired and I am the middle of three girls and they're both fully sighted.
I'm Beth, I'm visually impaired and I have a brother with my condition and two little sisters who are fully sighted.
Today's podcast is about brothers and sisters, siblings and relationships that you have.
We're diving in quite deep at the very start. And you might not know the answer. Did your parents have any guilt about the fact that you were visually impaired and your siblings, some or all or whatever your family setup is, weren't?
I actually had a recent conversation with my mum about it before this podcast, and she said obviously there was guilt because my older sister was probably 3 when I was born, so my sister had to spend a lot of time with other family members and stuff because I had a lot of surgeries and appointments that my parents had to be at.
Yeah, I'd say it's a difficult one because especially when you have a genetic condition, they automatically kind of feel a little bad about it, which I can understand, but at the same time it is what it is, especially for me. I'm the eldest and my sister that came next, she has albinism as well, so it's very much the case of my parents were aware of the fact that this was definitely a possibility, and I think the fact that I was very much a gremlin when I was a child gave them hope and made them feel okay about it, basically, because although I had a visual impairment, I was still running around and causing trouble as much as the next kid. So
The thing it made me think of, which maybe is not so much guilt, but I was the first, so my condition is genetic and my brother who's older than me has it and my dad also has it. I was the first person in our family diagnosed with it, and it was only then that my dad and my brother got their diagnoses, and so obviously they didn't know that it would be a possibility, and I was diagnosed when I was 5. My condition is dominant. There's a 50% chance of passing it on, and it doesn't affect my thought process on whether I would want to have children. I don't blame them for having children, obviously without the knowledge, but even if they had the knowledge. And my mum has asked me if I blame my dad for it and if I have resentment there, and which maybe thinks that suggests to me that she maybe has some guilt and would understand if I fell away, but they had no idea, and I don't wish it wasn't the case.
Do you mind saying what your eye condition is, Beth?
Yeah, sure. It's autosomal dominant optic atrophy.
And so did your people not know that your brother and your dad had it because their vision wasn't as bad as you?
Yeah, so my dad's above the legal driving limit with it, so the way the condition affects people can vary even within families, from having full sight and having the condition and having no sight at all and having the condition. So someone in every generation has to have it because it's dominant. So my granny also has it, and again, she wasn't diagnosed, she used to drive a car. And any signs of my brother, because he also has quite a lot more sight than me, so it's only when they notice things in me.
Did you have a closer or different relationship with your sister and Beth, your brother, because you shared the same condition?
So that's a really difficult one, actually, because there's other factors that kind of played into that. Me and my sister have a 5-year age gap, and me and my brother have a 7-year age gap. I've always had a pretty close relationship with my sister because of the fact that we both have albinism. We've both been able to kind of sit there and, moan about life and kind of not be alone with the fact of this condition, basically. Whereas I am very, very close to my little brother. It's weird. I'm very close to both of them, but I wouldn't say I'm closer to Emma because of the visual impairment. I'd say both of them are my siblings. It was definitely a breath of fresh air to have Emma there throughout that. I don't know what I would have done if I didn't have my little sister.
My answer is probably slightly different. So my brother is 2 years older than me and my little sisters are 2 years younger than me. And because my brother is the oldest of 3 little sisters, I think I'm definitely closer to my sisters for that, or definitely was. And because our sight is quite different, I wouldn't say that a lot of the struggles I have faced my brother has also faced. He's very, very sporty. He went into sport university and he plays side sports and doesn't have a lot of issues with that sort of thing. My brother's vision doesn't affect his life in a lot of the same ways mine does. And we never really talked about it. Like a few years ago, we did an interview with Fight for Sight about our condition, and it was the first time we'd sat down and talked about our vision with each other, like when there was someone else there who was interviewing us. Actually, there were lots of things that I didn't really know that Edward struggled with, or that he didn't know that I struggled with.
Did you have any envy over him because he has it but his vision is better than yours? Or is that not really something that you ever particularly thought?
I never really thought about it like that.
That's probably healthy.
Yeah.
From your point of view, and I guess it can only be from your point of view, what impact did your visual impairment have on your siblings?
There's 7 years between me and my little brother, so he followed me around like a shadow throughout the entirety of our childhood, pretty much. And we were talking the other day about how he used to do certain things when he was a kid because all he had seen was me and Emma do them. So when I tell you that we had to literally be like, Harry, you can't sit that close to the television, it's going to hurt your eyes. it was fully like, okay, little man, we know, but like you have to sit behind us. He kind of is so used to us that he is more like visually impaired than not sometimes. Like he'll do stuff and I look at him and I'm like, well, you learnt that from me, didn't you?
I guess though when you're little, you just copy what your siblings do, right? So
yeah.
If you're like reading books like close up like that, I guess he does that too.
Yeah.
And yet your brother obviously has two like main role models being visually impaired.
Yeah, that's the thing. So like Harry's a very unique example of how growing up around visually impaired people can just give you the mannerisms sometimes.
My siblings are much more aware of how they can support visually impaired people, and I think that's obviously like a benefit for them.
But my younger sister said to me that when she was so my younger sister's 4 years younger than me, she felt a responsibility towards me when we were out that she obviously didn't have to my bigger sister because she's not visually impaired, and she subconsciously did things because she knew that I would struggle, but she did them because she felt that it was, I don't know, it was just part of what she had to do as a sister. Do you think that ever went on in your family, like kind of taking things on subconsciously?
Yeah, I think my sisters are both really, really good supporting me without like necessarily being asked. And just before we came on, one thing I was thinking about that they've done for me ever since we were really little is when we're watching TV, is I'll like tell me what's happening on screen and like read out any like text on screen and stuff like that, and like something like that that's kind of just become natural to them, guiding me if we're out and about. Like I would just grab onto my sister's elbow without like having to discuss it with her, and just learn to just let me cling on.
Obviously it was quite prominent in my household. My older sister has always been extra protective, and then my younger sister, it was a weird dynamic because obviously she was born in, like, she'd only ever known like having a visually impaired sister, but even though she's 3 years younger than me, she always felt like a big sister. We'd walk to school together and she would always make sure like we were crossing the road safely, or she'd help me find things in the shop, and like just without thinking, even though like me and Honey probably ruined her street cred a little bit, having a sister with a disability has made them just the most kind-hearted and understanding people. My older sister now like owns her own business and she like makes everything accessible. Like you can add braille to anything. My younger sister is just so understanding, and I think having a sister with a visual impairment has made them much more empathetic people.
Do you know if your siblings ever had any jealousy towards you because you maybe got more attention because you had more like medical appointments or generally things going on?
My sisters definitely did, especially like my older sister, because when I was born, as I said, she was 3 years old. Like she didn't really understand why Mum wasn't around because she was at appointments with me, and I think my younger sister has probably felt a lot of jealousy as well because obviously I go to a lot of hospital appointments, and then I was doing sport because I didn't really have that social aspect of seeing my friends. Like I did sport, that was everything I did, so my dad would take me to sports all the time, and I think there was definitely some jealousy, but also they kind of just, it's all they've ever known, and they still will argue and like be just sisters, you know.
I had a pretty unique experience wherein my brother had severe ADHD unmedicated when he was younger, and it was the opposite, whereas like me and my sister kind of got left by the wayside while Harry was concentrated on. So like it's a different kind of dynamic, but yeah, like I can see how being on the other end of it would be, I don't know, difficult.
Did you guys ever feel different to your siblings? Did you feel, or just generally in your family, did you ever feel like you were different to them because you were visually impaired or because of your condition or whatever?
Yeah, definitely. Everyone in my family is very, very sporty, and my siblings, like when we were little, always out like riding bikes and stuff like that. And it was always something that I either didn't want to do or did to be part of it and really didn't enjoy. And I think that especially in like my early teenage years, when I stopped kind of doing those things that I didn't enjoy anymore, I did feel like I left out a lot of the time, and that the three of them had a lot more in common than I did. So again, including my brother in this, who is partially sighted but has a lot more sight than me. That's still true, like in a sense now, but I think it's more just that as we've grown up, we've got different interests and different hobbies, and we're like, you know, we're all adults now, so we all do, you know, choose to spend our time how we like. But all the three of them are on holiday together, and like literally at the moment they're in Spain doing like a walking holiday, which I was like, you know what, that's just not for me, and that's fine. But definitely probably from the age of like 13 to 16 where I felt like I was not part of their group.
And how did it make you feel?
Yeah, I definitely felt sad. Like I had quite a tough time around that age just generally, and that was definitely a contributing factor, and that I always felt like I was much better off at school when I was with my friends than when I was at home around my siblings.
Yes and no. I get treated just the same, but I think my sister have this unspoken closeness, and they're very similar people. They're both like very crafty and things, and like that's really hard as a visually impaired person, she says, with two very crafty visually impaired people on the call. But it's little things like my younger sister's favourite game is Double, right? If you don't know Double, you have to pick the pictures that match.
No.
And I just kind of sat there. I was quite jealous of them growing up. Like, they were always going off to sleepovers or hanging out with their friends and stuff. And with having a vision impairment, I didn't really have that. I really struggled with friendships.
I have a very different circumstance growing up because my parents weren't the best parents. They very much struggled in that area. So me and my siblings were really, really close. Like, we still are. It's very much us against their mentality growing up. Especially having... I'm close to both of them, but I'm close to them in different ways. Whereas like me and my brother, we're very much the same personality. We're very much mischievous. My sister is, obviously we have the same condition. I am 5 years older than her. I feel really close to her because I kind of ran the gauntlet, as it were. Like, I went through school first. I went through everything first and kind of like paved the way for her. And also, when you're in a house where people don't really take your disability seriously, having somebody else with that same disability going, no, they're not lying, they're telling you exactly what's going on, it's really helpful. And it really like does save you a lot of, I don't know, like the loneliness.
How did you guys feel about the whole driving thing when your siblings could and you couldn't?
My sister has her full license now. She can drive wherever she wants, and at 18. My older sister didn't drive because she went to uni, so she chose not to drive, but she's doing like her theory test and driving tests at the minute, and I feel like that also brings them closer. I think it's an odd feeling, but on the other side, like, I feel confident in trains, but I think they would hate it, like travelling as much as I do. But there is a lot of jealousy, but I think that's just generalised. Like, I'd always accepted the fact that I wouldn't drive, but now seeing my younger sister drive around wherever she wants, it's a mind-blowing thing.
So I think the driving thing was definitely a much bigger thing for Edward, my brother, because he thought he would be able to drive until he was 17, and then was told, actually, you don't have enough vision. And my sisters do drive now, so they're 18, and they've both passed their tests. But because I grew up in London, I don't feel any need to drive. We got the train to school. My mum never really drove us anywhere. We could get a bus or get a train, pretty much everyone else have. And so, like you say, Kate, I'm so confident travelling independently using public transport. And so Hannah and Amy now have passed their tests and don't drive. They're not insured on our car because it's too expensive and there's no need for them to. So that's one of the reasons I'm very, very grateful for growing up in London, because I've never felt any need to drive.
My brother's in the middle of getting his license at the moment. He has a car on the driveway. I've just been looking forward to the fact that when he gets a driving license, we can go wherever we want.
Because you're all visually impaired and you have siblings that aren't, what do your siblings do to support you, and how do they feel about it, do you think?
Yeah, because my brother's got pretty much like perfect vision. He notices people staring at me and my sister when we don't. So like obviously the cane plus the hair, it's very obvious that we're different. So we'll be walking around, and I'm the public transport person, so I'll get us where we need to go, but I need him to read the signs so I can get us where we need to go, right? So we'll be walking around, and I'll just hear from behind us just, like, grumbling, and I'm like, oh, it started already. He gets more frustrated by it than I do. We were watching a new TV show, and he had recommended it to me. He was like, you've got to watch this, it's brilliant. And my dad used to do this for me, but, like, my brother's kind of taking it on now, is whenever subtitles come up, immediately starts reading the subtitles, and I have my own personal audio description going on in the background, because if it's important to the TV show and he knows I haven't seen it, he's going to be like, oh yeah, by the way, there's a thing over there that says blah blah blah, and I'm like, okay, noted. So yeah, I feel like that's one of my favorite things, is just the fact that like he will not let me miss out on stuff just because I can't see it. If there is a joke going on in the room that I can't be a part of because I can't see it, he will let me know. Like I love him for that. Basically, it's a really cool trait.
He's just intuitively tuned in to he just knows what you would miss out on, and straight away just go straight in there with
even
it.
One of the funniest things I've like ever experienced is me and my sister being out. We were in London actually, and it was really, really sunny, and both of us have really bad photophobia. Mine's a lot worse than Emma's, but like it was to the point where neither of us could see. So without even, like, I was working up trying to ask him to guide me, because although, like, he's perfectly capable and I love him to pieces, I still raised that kid, and I remember when he was, like, a 3-year-old gremlin jumping off of just random stuff. So, like, it's more the case of, like, I trust you, but also I remember you. But I was working up, like, trying to ask him, and then without even missing a beat, he just, like, comes in between me and Emma and, like, holds both his arms out and is like, grab one. I'm like, okay. Like, he knows, he remembers.
Yeah, the subtitles thing is something I mentioned earlier, and it's when you've got siblings and they've grown up with you like that, like, it's just so intuitive to them, whereas now, like, I'm, like, training my boyfriend to do it automatically. Sometimes he's good, but sometimes I have to go, can you read that? Like, what is that? But I remember going to see Wicked with my brother in the theatre, like, quite a few years ago, and there being, it's reminded me of this thing when you said, like, a joke in the room that you miss, there being a bit where the whole audience laughed, and I didn't know what was going on, and Ed would just like nudge me and whispered in my ear and went, oh, the guy's got a funny haircut, because the actor had taken his hat off and he had like a funny haircut that I didn't see. But something that Hannah and Amy are really good at is just doing it, like, not making a big deal, and just like where they think I might be a bit like anxious about something, just like being their support. So we did on a family holiday last year, we did like gill scrambling in the Lake District. And it was really fun, and like I was like pretty much fine with all of it, but just because I couldn't see necessarily where we were going, like I was a bit nervy about some of it, and so they just walked like the whole way. One of them was in front of me and one of them was behind me, and it just meant that the whole time, like, I got to see someone else do it first, so I knew roughly what we were going to do, and one of them was behind me, just like could like tell me what was in front or anything like that if I needed it.
So like my younger sister, we used to walk to school together, and she would always just say, like, before I had Honey, watch, there's a car, like, just wait. And then when I had Honey, she obviously still did that, even though I was like, Honey can do it now. Or like, if we were going to a shop and I was like, I really want this, yeah, I'll find it, don't worry. Or like check the date on things. Over the summer, I was looking to join a new gym, like local to me, after I finished uni. And I went to one that my sister went with, and she came with me for a trial day. And she walked in and goes, this isn't accessible for you, is it? Because it was one of those gyms that had the spotlights. It was basically pitch black. All their equipment was black. And I was like, yeah, I don't think I'm coming back. She was like, Yeah, but it's just little things like they just get it.
All your eye conditions are genetic. How do you think your siblings would feel if they were carriers and then they had a child who had your condition?
I honestly don't know if my sisters are carriers. We've not really done the genetic testing, but because I was the first in my family to have any sort of visual impairment, it was kind of a shock. And I think my sister has a little boy now and he's like fully sighted, but I think because they've lived with me, visual impairment is just normal, and as long as the youngster is happy and healthy, that's all that matters. They can overcome any disabilities that could happen. Yeah, I don't think it would faze them.
My condition is dominant, but so my sisters are identical twins, so if one of them's got it, they've both got it. But it is possible that they have it and won't ever have any vision impairment, or could lose some sight later in life. And recently my mum and I attended a webinar about our condition, and a big focus, or something they mentioned multiple times, was the possibility of siblings having it and not exhibiting signs, and that they should get tested before they go on and have children. And I said to my mum, like, I really don't like this take, because it's suggesting that you should be trying to avoid having children with the condition. And I think I could, like, support our child with that. But it's obviously, and my mum's like, yeah, I think for you that makes sense, but Hannah and Amy might feel differently because they haven't had that experience and they haven't learned how to do it. And so maybe that's something that does concern them, but they've got quite a good understanding of how you can have like a fulfilling and like good life with the condition.
So I've never really spoken to my brother about this, but
Do you think?
like I have the feeling that he, like, if it's the same attitude he has towards me and Emma, I don't really think he'd care. Like, again, like 7 years between me and him, and I kind of raised him, so he knows, like, there's nothing that I can't do, basically. Anything I put my mind to, I'm gonna end up doing it. Like, anything he's seen me and my sister do and put our minds to, we've gone and done it. I mean, like, I've travelled halfway around the world working, and he's seen that.
So your siblings that don't have your eye condition, if there's one thing you could say to them in a sentence, what would it be?
I think I'd probably just say thank you for being such a legend, because, like, he genuinely, it's not something we've talked about on here, but he has such a sense of humour when it comes to my condition, whereas, like, I was bullied throughout my entire life because of the way I look, because of my vision, all of this, and it's like, the thing that annoyed me most about the bullying was that it was, like, unoriginal, because I had my brother back at home throwing all of these, like, little comments in, like, such a nice way as well. It was never meant it meanly or anything like that. But he has such a sense of humour when it comes to the condition, and he's never afraid to poke fun of it, and I love him for that.
I was also going to say thank you, but also that although they might not understand what I can see, they understand me and how it affects me better than anyone else ever has, and I will always appreciate that.
Christina, you choked me up with this question, but just being the most empathetic, just kind-hearted people I know, I'm so grateful for everything that they've done for me. Even if they are, like, absolute annoying sisters, we argue just like anyone else, but most of the happiest moments growing up are with those two, just bullying each other, having banter. Like, I'm just incredibly grateful for them.